Hi, everybody. Welcome to 13 Now. I'm News 13's Amy HOYT. We are live in our studios in downtown Panama City. Your local election headquarters bringing you all 6 candidates that are coming up in the runoff election in the city of Lynn Haven. And last night, as you know, if you were with us, we featured the 2 city commission candidates for seat 4. And tonight, you will meet 2 newcomers who are running to win your votes for seat 3. And they are George H. Hines Jr. and Jamie Warrick. And we welcome them. It's good to have you both here tonight. Let's go over the rules quickly. They already know what they are, but we want you at home to know what they are. Each candidate will have an opportunity to answer the same question, starting in alphabetical order, then alternating, of course, throughout the debate. They will also have a chance to ask each other a question. And while this is a casual setting, we will still set the clock for a minute and a half per answer. And that may be followed up with questions if I hear something that either one of you say that needs a follow-up or something we feel like needs to be clarified. So what we want to do is begin with an opening statement. We'd like you gentlemen to tell us a little bit about yourself. And since Mr. Hines is first because of alphabetical order.
Yes, ma'am.
Sir, it's up to you.
I'm George H. Hines Jr. Thank you for inviting me here out tonight. I was born and raised in Bay County, Florida. I went in the military at the age of 18. I retired at the age of 40. In my 21 years in the military, I was in several leadership positions. I went to all the leadership academies. I graduated from each one of them. I was in charge of millions of dollars of equipment and personnel professional training. After that, I retired and I came home and joined local law enforcement for 4 years. And after that, I joined school buses for 17 and a half years. And doing all that, I had time to join Habitat for Humanity, which I was board president for 3 years. And I'm associated with BASIC from Northwest Florida, Habitat for Humanity, DAV, Disabled Veterans Associations, and First Baptist Church. I'm going to say Family of God Baptist Church. Correction. Thank you.
All right. Thank you so much. Mr. Warrick?
Yes, first, thank you for having me. My name is Jamie Warrick. I'm originally from Central New York. After I graduated high school, I joined the United States Air Force. I went into aircraft maintenance where I spent 23 years and traveled all over the world. And of course, being in the Air Force is what brought me into Bay County. I was stationed at Tyndall from 2008 to 2014. And they transferred me to a base in Texas, Dyess Air Force Base, Texas. We spent 2.5 years there, and when I felt it was time to retire and hang up the uniform, me and my wife decided we wanted to move back here because we really like this area. So we moved back here, and we really enjoy it, and looking forward to serving the community.
All right, very good. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Just as a reminder, our digital reporter, Jenna Maddox, who is off camera, is right behind us, and she will clock both of you for a minute and a half. She'll give you a 30-second cue when you have 30 seconds left in your answer if you are still speaking, and then we'll time you out, and you'll just finish up when we get to a minute and a half. Okay, everybody ready?
Yes,
all right, Mr. Hines, you get to go first.
Yes, ma'am.
Both of you are military veterans who served our country with honor and dignity, but you are now entering a world where some of that character and honesty across the country is lacking. In Lynn Haven, you're aware of the FBI corruption scandal and those who have been arrested, some at the highest level of elected leadership for the city. How do you view that federal investigation, and what will you do to make sure corruption doesn't happen again?
Corruption is a thing that happens to people when they get in a powerful position because they get corrupt by other people in powerful position by greed. Greed is the #1 killer of integrity and truth. And what I would do is always tell the truth. And I will not do any under the table deals. Anything I do will be on top of the table. It'll be open to the public, and I believe in transparency and honesty.
What do you think about the corruption scandal since you still have some time now? You've been following it?
Yeah, I've been following it. It's still on investigation, and I hold my judgment to the end because I'm no lawyer, so I can't really say what did happen, what didn't happen. All I know is the facts that they got caught up in a scandal, and it's still a scandal, and it hurt our community, and we want to fix it and better preserve our community.
All right, thank you so much. Mr. Warrick?
Yes, so with the federal corruption scandal is one of the main reasons why I'm running. And, you know, a lot of residents are upset about it because they put their trust into those politicians and they feel like they let them down. And so the integrity piece is very important to me. I was very fortunate that I had good parents that brought me up with good values. And when I went in the Air Force, the values that the Air Force gave me just empowered the values that my parents gave me that much more. So integrity has been ingrained in me at a very young age. It's part of my DNA, and it's something I'm really passionate about. Unfortunately, a lot of times politicians, when they get into politics, I believe a lot of them had good intentions of doing good things, but once they get in there, they get easily manipulated. I'm not one of those people. I've been put in a lot of difficult, stressful situations, and I will always do what's best for the residents. I will never be involved in the good old boy network. I will never be involved in secret meetings. I believe in transparency, and I think that's one of the big things that Lynn Haven needs to fix.
All right, well, that brings us to our next question about transparency. It's a big word. We often hear it thrown around, especially in politics. So the question is, how will you be transparent with Lynn Haven residents if elected? And I need you to be specific. Mr. Warrick, you go first.
Big thing is, so my big thing is numbers. For instance, the budget. When you look at the budget, I feel there's some things missing on there that needs to be on there. And one of the things I see on the budget that I see in other municipalities is it doesn't show salaries of all the different positions. And I think in order for us to make informed decisions on things like that, we need transparency. And I know that's on the budget. But as far as as a commissioner, just be straight up honest with people. If you don't know something, tell them you don't know it. If you got questions, ask questions. Bring everything out in the open. Don't make it a secret. Don't do things behind closed doors.
All right. Mr. Hines?
Transparency is not an easy subject, and it's not too hard either. It's a visional question. What you see is what you mean. And my transition of transparency is everything should be out in the open. He talked about the budget. The budget right now in Lynn Haven is high, but it's high for a reason. Anyone experienced a hurricane know it's high for a reason. Anyone deal with FEMA know it's high for a reason. FEMA won't pay you until you spend the money. You got to spend the money to get the money back on the back end. The budget around $6-7 million, and $5 million of it is refundable by FEMA and insurance company that we haven't received yet. So that brings the budget down to around $73 million. He's a budget man, a numbers man. I'm not. I'm a stature man. So if anything is done that I think is underhanded, I'm going to say out loud what it is and who did it. I'm not hiding from anybody. I'm not hiding anything from anybody. I would be above board and open to anything come my way.
Will you be available to people? That's a part of transparency where they can reach you?
Yes, ma'am. My phone number is 850-624-6977. Every forum I go to, I pass it out. No one's called me yet. I don't know why.
Wait, if you get elected, that will end quickly,
yes,
I assure you.
I'm open all the time.
Now, you both mentioned the budget, so you're ahead of the curve here. The Lynn Haven City budget is my next question. It's about $54 million. It's been 2.5 years since Hurricane Michael, which created debt for every city across the area. Yes. Have you looked at the budget? And where do you see room for improvement? Mr. Hines, you started to mention that. Let's finish.
I got a copy of the last audit that was done in 2020. And in the last audit, it showed some areas of improvement that you can improve on. And those are the things I was talking to Ms. Kiki, the financial lady at the city, about that. And they have some plans to fix some of the areas that they were short on and to improve some of the areas that they're behind on. It's hard to keep personnel these days without good benefits. And a lot of transition of employment is happening throughout every city in Bay County right now. So we are working on it. The city is working on it. And I depend on the people in the city to explain to me where it is and what they're going to do to fix it.
Okay, very good. Mr. Warrick.
Yes, ma'am. So one of the things I did is I actually did a public records request with the city on how much they paid for payroll from fiscal year 15 to fiscal year 20. And when you look at that, it has actually increased by 85% in those years. And you expect it to go up because of cost of living adjustment, increase in employees and things like that. But 85% is way too much increase in that. So that's one area I want to focus on. Another thing I noticed on the public records request is they spent about $1.8 million just in overtime. And that's another area I'd like to see on the budget as far as, is there a certain department that's continually working overtime? Because if there is, then maybe we need to hire a couple more people, because there are instances when it's actually more beneficial to pay someone overtime. But if there's a certain department that's continually working overtime, maybe it's time to hire a couple more people. And not only that, you don't want to overwhelm a department where their production level isn't up. So that's one of the things that I would do. And yeah, that's what I would do.
Let me ask you both real quick, in between questions. How many commission meetings have you attended?
Oh, gosh.
Have you been going for weeks, months? Did you just start going?
I've been going for months. I would say it's been at least a year.
Okay, Mr. Hines?
I've been going to Lynn Haven City Commission meetings since 1998. I make at least one a month, if I don't make both of them.
All right, so both of you are familiar
Civically
then.
involved, yes, ma'am.
All right. Last year, the sitting commission raised the millage rate from 3.9 to 4.3, raising taxes on property owners. Are you in favor of raising taxes again? Mr. Warrick, you go first.
Well, we need to make sure that we do everything the city can do to prevent that from happening. And as long as we do everything we need to, I think we can figure out a way to do that. You know, I was brought up in a time in the military where we went through a lot of budget cuts and manpower cuts. And when you force them to figure it out, they will figure it out. So there may be certain areas that we're like, hey, you're going to have to figure out with this amount of money. But I know the residents have been through a lot since Hurricane Michael, and the last thing you want to tell them is you want to increase their taxes even more. We need to make sure we do our due diligence and do everything we can to prevent that from happening. So I would not be in favor of a tax millage increase.
If you were on the board last year, would you have voted no on that millage rate hike?
I would have voted no.
All right, Mr. Hines, how do you feel about raising taxes?
Yes, ma'am. I don't believe raising taxes on the citizens. This is actually needed, and if it's needed, it's going to have to show me a lot of material as to why they need it, because in my household, I pay my bills as they come in. And as they increase, then I have to decrease somewhere else in order to continue to pay my bills. And I think the citizens should do the same thing. We may have to cut something in order to save the citizens instead of increasing the taxes and not increasing the productivity of the city. Someone told me once at one of these forums that we are a grant-ran city. So it's a lot of grants out there for small cities. There's a lot of grants out there for rural cities. It's a lot of grants out there for cities in our condition. So if we need to, we can get some grants to come in to keep from raising the millage rate. I don't believe in raising taxes unless we just have to. And I got to have a lot of material to prove that you need to raise my taxes.
I'll ask you the same question. If you were on the board a year ago, would you have raised the millage rate?
No, ma'am.
You would have voted no.
I would vote no.
Mind if I add something to that real quick?
Go ahead, 30 seconds.
I absolutely agree with everything that George Hines said, and but the one thing I noticed, because you know I always looking at numbers, is we had $38 million of debt even before Hurricane Michael came here. So we already had a spending problem before Hurricane Michael came here, and we need to figure out what that spending problem is and fix that.
I can agree.
Yeah?
I agree. Yes, ma'am.
Okay. All right. The city recently voted to allow new housing development to move forward in an already congested area, and Mill Bayou residents, as you know, asked loudly for that development to be put on hold until the city can find a way to mitigate the overpopulation that will come and traffic in an already dangerous area, especially near North Bay Haven Charter Academy, where there's only one road that is in and out in that area. Would you have voted yes or no, and why? Mr. Hines?
I would have voted no, and the reason is that area is congested. In order for that, well, if I was on the board, first of all, I would have seen this. It wouldn't have been the final reading. It would have been the first or the second reading. I would have brought up a complaint about the write-up of the development. The building of development with one road in, one road out, it's unsafe automatically on its own. So I would have required that they had a back out road on the back end on Titus Road, or if they had a Biller Road, I don't care, as long as they had two ways in and two ways out, because it's a hazard going in and coming out the same exit. You wouldn't do it as a building. Why would you do it as a development? It's highly unsafe.
Now, if you get elected on May 18th, is there anything you think you can do to make that happen, to force them to build another road or two? Is there a way to fix that?
We can require the developer to come up with an augmentation to his plan or a second addition to his plan to show that he'll have a road completed out the backside of that to over to Titus Road before he even start development on the second one. In the meeting, they said that he couldn't get a CO in his north part until he built the road out. But if he could still build the north part before he did the road, that's unlogical. Build a road, then build a north part, and then you already have the road when you complete it. You don't have to worry about the CO. The COs can be done.
All right. Mr. Warrick?
I agree. I would have voted no on it. I didn't think it was that hard of a decision. The commission made it sound like it was a hard decision. I disagree. I actually went to the public workshop they had for that, and the residents, I have to say, the residents did a lot of homework, and they brought a lot of great information on why they shouldn't approve it. And it really wasn't so much prove it. It was they weren't against the development. What they were really wanting was a traffic study done during peak hours.
Right.
And when they were talking to the commissioners at the public workshop, I think they thought that they were getting somewhere with them. And then the next day they had the commission meeting, and one of the commissioners brought up a motion to approve a traffic study done during peak hours, and they couldn't even get a second for it. You know, when one of the commissioners had mentioned that they're worried about legalities and getting sued, but when it comes to safety, especially when it comes to kid, it's an easy decision. Very easy decision. They should approve for a traffic study to be done and be done with it. And yeah, I would have voted no for it.
Could I say something else?
Of course.
30
seconds.
Yes. In the past in Bay County, we have used eminent domain to take property from one if development is increasing the value of the city or the improvement of the city. So the area that's leading into Titus Road, if they wanted to, they could have called it eminent domain, use that law, and made them to build that road before they even started the development, if it's that important to them.
Did you wonder why they voted the way they did?
No, ma'am, I witnessed them voting the way they did. I know why they did it.
Why?
Because they didn't want to face the possibility of a lawsuit.
Okay.
But you got to put yourself on the line sometime if you're in charge.
All right. Any other comment from you on that?
I agree with that. I'll also add, I think it has something to do with the relationship with the developers. I think, you know, the corruption that you see going on, I got a lot of questions, and I'm not saying that's guaranteed, but it makes me question a lot of things. It makes me wonder.
Who's the developer in this case?
Mr. Thames, as I know is his name. I can't remember the actual name.
But he owns the property. These folks own the property.
Yes, ma'am, they own the property now, yes.
All right. Next question. Voters passed a tax incentive for new and existing businesses that bring in full-time jobs to Lynn Haven. The tax break is apparently given off the top, which I learned last night. So if XYZ business doesn't perform or bring jobs that it said it would, that money is sort of just lost. What would you do to change that? You go first.
I would make sure that it's in the contract so that if it doesn't happen, then that money ends up becoming ours, and they owe us that money. I know this is a little bit different, but there was Red Pine. I think it happened in
the county.
Was that the county?
It was the county.
But that was a little bit different because they gave them money up front. But again, if it was written properly, then they wouldn't have the problems that they have. So you need to make sure that you have the right legal language in it to protect the city.
Right. Well, they've since changed that with the county.
Right.
All right. Which doesn't, well, it does affect us. I was going to say this is Lynn Haven, but it does affect us in a way. All right, Mr. Hines.
My plan for that situation was, and I talked to the Realtor Association about this, if you want to tell me you can bring in X amount of jobs and pay X amount of money per year for those jobs, they want to give them a tax exempt. I don't believe in that. I believe they bring the jobs here, they do what they say they're going to do for 5 years. If they prove true with what they said, then I give them a tax exemption for the next 10 years or the next 5 years. I will not give them tax exemption up front because they haven't proved that they can do what they say they can do.
Would you fight to change the current tax incentive rule then?
Because, yes, ma'am, if I have the opportunity.
Or would have to go maybe back on the ballot now because voters said yes to it.
Have a different referendum.
Right.
But when you put in for a different referendum, you got to put in the right verbiage to get it done.
Do you think people were confused by that?
I think so.
Because Panama,
they had it written where they said existing business or expanding businesses, and then they had new businesses. That was two different things. Existing businesses, expanded businesses, meaning they're already there, and they just expanded their businesses. Then I would give them a tax exempt. But new businesses tied onto it, that's where the confusion came in.
Right. In the city of Panama City, those residents voted no to extend their tax incentives this same election.
Right.
What I was going to say is this doesn't focus on just any business. This focuses on more of industrial manufacturing type businesses. So if you take a business like a commercial business, for every dollar of tax revenue we receive, the city provides about 40 cents of tax city services. So it's a 60% net profit. But when you look at industrial manufacturing type businesses, the city only provides about 10 cents of city services. So it's a 90% profit. So there's a lot of meat on the bone. And honestly, if everything is done right, it's a lot. It's low risk. And when you bring all those jobs in, there's a lot of benefits to that because people. I mean, the whole goal is for them to shop in Lynn Haven, go to restaurants and eat. And let's say you get enough people there, and you don't have enough restaurants. That might spark another business to start up. So I think it's a great tool in the toolbox. It just needs to be implemented. And the last thing I'll say is, it's only used, if you look at historically when it's been used, it's only been used once every 5 years, so it's not used all the time.
Okay. Next question, stormwater drainage. It's a decades-long problem in the city of Lynn Haven, and while there has been improvement, there's still a long way to go. So we want to know what your ideas are for fixing the issue, and can it be permanently fixed for future generations? Mr. Hines?
Oh, that's a hard question. Stormwater runoff. The water table in Bay County in some areas is less than a foot deep, so it's kind of hard to control that stormwater when it's sitting right up under the surfaces. The best way to do it in certain areas is to build a stem wall, which is a cement block wall that you build and then you put your house on top of it. That'll just keep your land from flooding, but then you're going to cause flooding down the road. So the main thing is fixing the infrastructure under the ground. It's an unseen problem that people can't see it, so they can't really visually see it, then they can't understand it. But it costs millions of dollars to do this. We still have cast iron pipes under the ground, some parts of Bay County, and they need to be replaced. It's expensive. I know it's expensive, but it needs to be done. And I talked to the man in charge of stormwater runoff, and they had a vacuum truck ordered, and they got it, and they cleaned out a lot of ditches that used to pay to rent a truck to do it, and it was 3 times the price. We saved a lot of money that way, but we still need to change this infrastructure. That was the plan I had for the new development and new development coming in. If they do 100 yards of infrastructure repairs
30.
into the area that they're going to develop in, then we can get rid of a lot of our material right there and save a lot of money by putting it on the developer.
Well, you mentioned the ditches.
Yes, ma'am.
You know, in some neighborhoods, some folks have ditches, and some people had it piped in years ago.
Yes, ma'am.
And sometimes the city, and I know they're busy or understaffed, but some people fill in those ditches that should be ditches, and it creates a problem. So do you have any plan to, I don't know, somehow make some kind of guideline where it has to be even across the board, or those people will have to just pipe in their ditches?
We can try to entice people to hook into the water sewer system. That's what it is. Some people still on septic tanks that are allowed in the Lynn Haven area, and we can't just force them into it, but somehow we need to find a way to entice them to go ahead and tie into it, or else we're going to have to dig a deeper ditch in front of their house, which really is going to make them unhappy.
Yeah.
But that's the only way you can do it. It's the only 2 ways you can do it.
All right, Mr. Warrick?
Yeah, you're right. Lynn Haven, you know, I can say a lot of bad things sometimes about what's going on in Lynn Haven, but I have to say this area, they have made a lot of strides. And I've talked to Chris Lightfoot, who's heading up this whole thing. He's only been working there, I think, about 7 months. Mm-hmm. And he laid everything out for me and showed me the priority listing. And actually, I didn't know this, but the county has a hazard mitigation fund. And so the important piece for us is make sure we have good justification for all our projects out there so we can fight for that money. And I think Chris Lightfoot's plan is solid. He's got a really awesome plan. In fact, they had a public workshop on it, and he has saved us a lot of money. And if he continues to go in the direction that we're going in, it may not be as expensive as we thought. And I think Lynn Haven is going in the right direction with that.
All right. Now we've come to the fun part where you get to ask each other a question. And so, Mr. Warrick, you go first, and we'll let you ask Mr. George a question.
I'll be honest with you. I thought about, what question I would ask, and I really don't have questions for George Hines. This is what I will say for Mr. Hines is I want to say thank you for having a clean campaign. We haven't thrown mud at each other or anything. He's ran his campaign. I've ran my campaign. I think it's been a really fair campaign, and I just want to say thank you for that because in most cases there's just no need for that. And so I know George, from what I've seen when he talks to people, he gives them a straight answer, and I have to give him credit for that. But to be honest with you, I don't really have any questions for him.
You have a question?
No, I have a comment. People say I talk fast. I don't talk fast. They listen slow. That's the process. But actually, I agree with Jamie. I appreciate him saying what he said about my campaign and the way he ran his campaign. I didn't think he put the big signs up for a reason, but anyway, he ran a good campaign, and we are not enemies. Sometimes people think we are, and sometimes people try to make us out to be, but that's not the way it's going to be. Either one of us get to be elected, and we're both asking for your votes for the position of seat 3. And I enjoyed the interview. And thank you for asking me out.
All right. Well, we appreciate you both. But now that you mentioned you were referring to Mr. Dick, who is running for the other seat, That was the comment just now, right?
No.
The signs?
Oh, he was talking
Oh,
about
no,
my
I'm talking
big
about his
signs.
low and tall signs he got.
Oh, okay.
He
I
got
thought
signs
you
taller
mentioned
than
his
him
name.
side the road.
Well, I'm going to ask the question
I just
anyway
did your
because
signs. Go ahead, man.
now I'm hearing slow.
No, you throw it.
I'm a grandmother. I can't help it.
Go ahead.
All right. Last night we had the commission candidates for seat 4.
Yes, ma'am.
And in that race, there was another gentleman who should have been in the runoff, Mr. Gray, and he stepped out
Yes, ma'am.
for personal reasons. I asked them, and I'm going to ask you both, did either one of you know him or have anything to do with him stepping out? Because city residents vote at large in Lynn Haven, so the seat number doesn't matter.
I know Brian Gray pretty well. Since we started, I think I first met him in October, and we put in our paperwork about the same time. So I've talked to him quite a bit, but I had nothing to do with his decision. Actually, it was a surprise to me, to be honest with you. And I've talked to him after that and all that. So I talk to him all the time.
All right. Mr. Hines?
I know Brian from VA because I'm a disabled veteran, so I go to the VA system. And I just know him as an individual that was running for office. I didn't know his aspiration to be so high and for him to be so deep into politics. But he's a pretty good guy overall. Mm-hmm. And I talked to him last week, and he told me he was in the hospital from COVID. So, you know, I sympathize with him in his condition and all. And I don't know why he fell out of the race either. I don't have any idea of why that happened or how it happened. I just heard about it.
All right, very good. Well, we appreciate both of you gentlemen for coming out and answering our questions tonight. George H. Hines Jr. is what you'll see on the ballot, and Jamie Warrick. This is for seat 3, but Lynn Haven residents do vote at large, and we appreciate you both coming out for the live debate tonight. You both did really well. Good job, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Now, tomorrow night, both candidates for Lynn Haven mayor will be here, Ellen Fields and Jesse Nelson, and we hope you will log in at 7 p.m. tomorrow night, mypanhandle.com, and of course, you can also watch along on our Facebook page, WMBB Facebook as well. And remember, early voting starts on Monday, next Monday, May 10th. It goes through Friday, the 14th. It will be 7 to 7 at the Senior Center. If you prefer to wait to Election Day, Tuesday, May 18th, it will also be at the Senior Center from 7 to 7. And of course, we are your local election headquarters here at News 13, and we will have the results for you the night of May 18th. Again, thank you for watching. We'll see you next time.